just introduce our two clinicians, but before I do that, I do want to thank our sponsors for tonight. We could not have done it without them, but thanks to them, to Yamaha and to Dario, we were able to bring in these two phenomenal clinicians. So although these guys really don't need an introduction, I'm going to go ahead and give them a little one anyway. But the first one is Jeff Coffin. Jeff is a 3-time Grammy winner, performed with Bella Fleck and the Flexstones for 14 years. He's currently a touring musician with Dave Matthews Band and teaches sax and improv at Vanderbilt University. So ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Coffin. Joining him today, we have Rashawn Ross. Rashawn is a graduate from Berklee School of Music, has been a performer for a long time, performing with a wide variety of genres and artists, and currently plays with Dave Matthews Band as the trumpet player. So ladies and gentlemen, Rashawn Ross.
Hello, this is maybe a little loud.
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
Great.
Good? Good.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And you want to check yours? Sure. Perfect. Awesome. Nice. Well, thanks for coming out and spending a little time with us. And of course, big thanks to Amro Music. We love coming back here. And so we're going to play a little for you first. And we're going to talk about some things. And hopefully you guys will have some questions. Excuse me, that will kind of help to lead the discussion tonight also. One of the reasons that Rashawn and I come out and do these things is to connect with young students and other musicians and players and educators, and kind of talk about some of the things that we do on the road, in the studio, as composers, as arrangers, as players, as educators. And so hopefully you guys will have some questions, and we'll get into some things. We're going to start off by playing a blues for you, because we're in Memphis, and there's no better place for the blues than Memphis, right? And we already had barbecue, so now it's time for the blues. So we're going to play a tune of mine called Joe Jones. And, so compositionally, this tune was written and inspired by the great Joe Lovano and the late great Hank Jones. Joe Lovano was an incredible saxophonist, and Hank Jones was from a very musical family, great piano player. And so they had a duo record that they did called Live at Dizzy's, which is a club up in New York. And I heard a tune off of there, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, the way it was kind of angular. And I was thinking, oh, I kind of want to write a tune that's inspired by that. And so one of the things about playing in composition that you can listen for in what Rashawn and I do is kind of vertical and horizontal playing. And, horizontal playing is where the intervals, the space between the notes is a little less, and the shape of the line is a little smoother. And with vertical playing, it's the leaps between the notes might be a bit wider, and it's almost more angular in nature. So listen for that in this tune and see if you can hear it in the melody. And we hope you like this. It's called the Joe Jones.
And it's the blues.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Did you notice the vertical and the horizontal? Did you notice the difference? Some kind of angular lines, especially the melody in particular, and even when we were soloing, as opposed to the horizontal, which is where the intervals are a little bit closer together, right? So one of the other things that I want to do while we're on the blues here, we talk about phrasing a lot. We talk about improvisation and working on phrasing. And phrasing is kind of difficult to teach, okay? And unless you're working a lot with a vocalist, chances are pretty good that there's still a lot to learn about phrasing. And I think that all musicians should have an opportunity to work with a vocalist. Vocalist has to sing words most of the time. The sound being produced with the voice. There's no fingers involved in singing too many notes, although some people do. So I think it's an important aspect of it. And so, we talk about music as a language a lot of times. And so one of the things that I want to do is I actually want to take a spoken phrase and use it as an improvisation. Okay, and so you can start improvisation this way. You can take this and develop it to a very high degree. You can get vocalists to work on it. You can get instrumentalists to work on it. So rather than explaining it, I'll kind of show you what I'm going to do. So I need a simple phrase, okay, like a 2 or 3 word phrase. How about you give me a phrase? Just something really simple and short. Right here, yeah, in the big shirt, yep. What is it? That's too long. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. I can't say that. How about something shorter? Like how about, you like ice cream? Okay, so how about I like ice cream? We'll use that one? Okay, so we'll use that one. We'll use I like ice cream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the phrase, I'm going to say it a few times, I like ice cream. I like ice cream. It has rhythm to it, doesn't it? I like ice cream. Da 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 da. Right? So I'm going to play that on one note, and I'm going to think of the phrase. See if you hear it in what I play.
I like ice cream.
Right? Can you hear that in there? I like ice cream. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play it to the blues. And I'm going to play around the horn, but I'm going to use that phrase. I like ice cream. So I really like ice cream. So you can start to hear this in the music, and so all I'm doing is I'm thinking in that phrase. So if there's a young improviser that you're working with, or if you're just starting to improvise, you can take something really simple like that. You can even simplify. You want to try it with one?
How about So he likes ice cream, and being that this is a conversation, we can make it into an argument, and I can say no, you don't.
Oh, okay.
So
there you go.
That would be my answer. So this is a conversation we're gonna have now. He likes ice cream, and I'm just gonna say no, you don't. So here it goes. I hope we get it right.
So we've actually never done this before, so this will be fun.
Yeah.
I wasn't so sure there by the end if I did or not.
I'm very convincing.
So yeah, you can start to get into stuff like that. You know, you can take something out of a book. I mean, you can just start reading something out of a book on your instrument. You just put the book down, or get your computer up, and just like put music to the words. I'm going to show you another example of this. This is something that you likely all know. So I'm going to play this. If you've been to one of my clinics and you know what this is, don't say it. But how many people knew what that was? How many people knew what that was who have been to my clinics? Right, okay. How many people who haven't been to my clinics know what that was? You think you know what it is? You think you know? Okay, so I'm going to do it again for you. Do you want a hint? Because I said you all know it, right? Right? You want a hint?
Yeah.
She's like, no, I don't want a hint at all. Okay, the hint is that you don't know the melody. So think about that as I play it. Think about the other elements that are going on in what I'm playing besides the melody. besides melody that I'm doing? There's rhythm, right? And so someone said lyrics. It's not lyrics, but I am thinking about words. Okay? Anybody want to take a guess at what it is? What do you think? I like ice cream. Good guess, but that's not what it is. Maybe you should come to all our clinics. What do you think?
You don't know the melody?
No. No, there actually is no melody to this. I made up the melody. I mean, I keep playing the same melody, but I made it up. Well, I composed the melody for this. So I'll give you another hint.
Those are the words.
It's words that you know. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's the rhythm of the words that you know. Okay, I'm going to play it again before I give you the final hint.
So it's the rhythm of the words that you know.
Any ideas? No, it's not the alphabet. No. What do you think? No, it's not Figaro. That's a good guess, though. What do you think? Yeah.
Happy birthday?
See it?
Happy birthday.
No, it's not Happy Birthday. You want the final? What do you think?
Merry Christmas.
No. You want the final clue? What do you think?
Happy birthday.
No. You want the final clue? Well, the final clue is it's something you recite. It's the Pledge of Allegiance. That's right. So check it out. I'm going to do it again.
Did you get it? Did you get it? Anybody get it? Okay, so think of the words this time when I play. You can say them out loud if you want, okay?
How many people got it that time? Y'all get it? Okay. So, my point with this is that music is a language, okay? And we've probably heard that many times. Oh, it's kind of the universal language, and it really is. And so there are fundamental elements that we want to talk about tonight as well, but kind of showing you that you can use the spoken language and you can equate it to music. When we're playing a standard tune, something like Body and Soul, there's lyrics to that. So we're actually putting sound to the lyrics. And so it's not dissimilar to what we're talking about here. And so let's do this. Let's take one more phrase, and we'll trade back and forth. We're going to take the same phrase this time. We're going to trade back and forth. I know a couple of people came in. So what we're doing is we're taking the blues form, just to reiterate this, and we're taking a spoken phrase, and we're making that our improvisation. And it's a great way to teach beginning improvisation, and it's a great way for advanced players also to cut back on what we're playing, okay? And it kind of gives you parameters. It also teaches you how to phrase. And you can take the phrase also, you can shorten it, you can elongate it, you can play it in different registers, you can say it more than one time. So the only limitation, if you will, is your own imagination, okay? So we'll try it one more time. Who has a phrase? What you got? I like chocolate. I like that. All right.
I like chocolate. Me too. classroom if you want. You can do a call and response kind of thing. Let's do that actually. Let's do that. We're going to take another phrase, and we're going to play something simple, and you're going to respond it back. We're going to do a little call and response. Okay? We'll try something new today. You in for it?
Yeah.
All right. All right, who in the back has a short phrase? What do you got?
You slice pizza.
You slice pizza.
Yes.
That's 4 syllables again. Let's do something that's not 4. What do you got? What?
That's 4 syllables.
4 syllables. Something else. Yeah.
Locked up.
What do you
Can't
say?
hear you.
Locked up.
He said locked up.
Do something with more of a positive slant. Yeah. I like your long beard. I like your long beard. Okay, that's 5 syllables. We can do that. But for the call and response, let's do something. Let's do this. Let's go, how are you? Okay? Let's do how are you. Let's do something that's 3 syllables. So that when I play it and you sing it back to me, I want you to say, how are you? But I want you to play the phrase. So if I go, 2, 3, how are you? Right, you get the idea?
Yeah.
All right, let's try that. I'll do a chorus, then you do a chorus.
All right.
Yeah, that's great. So again, you kind of get the idea of how this works and why it works. And it's a fun way to exchange information. It's a fun way to get students improvising also. We're not talking about theory. We can get into that later. But if you have young students that are interested in improvisation, it's a bit of a game, you know. And it makes it interesting, it makes it fun, and along the way you can get into the theory. But you don't have to know the whole alphabet before you start talking. You don't have to know what a subject and a verb and an adjective and a predicate and an adverb and all this stuff. You don't have to know all the different parts before you start having a conversation. You can learn that along the way. But if you get students engaged early, there's a lot of different methods out there. This is just one of them. This helps to teach phrasing, teaches a call and response. It teaches kind of a community effort. And before you know it, you can teach, like the stuff that we were just playing to you, there were some very advanced rhythms that were going on there, okay? We weren't trying to write them out, having you read them, okay? You were just doing it. Why? Because you were listening. And listening is by far the most important fundamental you can work on. You know? I hear that. Okay, and that's not just in music, that's in life in general, I think. But we're using music as a metaphor today. And so listening is very much at the top of that list, at the top of that fundamental list. Okay? Any questions about that process of teaching phrasing and this kind of thing? Any questions about that? Okay. Well, let's open it up for some questions that you guys have. Because we're here for you, so we want to talk about some of the things that are on your mind and that we kind of dig in a little deeper to. So let's open it up. You can have the first question.
As a former saxophone player,
Mhm.
my girl, she's taking up the alto saxophone. Are there any exercises that you would recommend to strengthen your embouchure?
Yes. The question was, are there any exercises I would recommend to strengthen the embouchure? Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. TheSaxophoneBook.com. Yeah. So my point is that this information is in these books. This is full of ideas and exercises, concepts, thoughts. There's a lot of information. If you go there, you can look through the first 50 pages of each book online. It's a print-on-demand book, so the books are only $20 a piece. And there's a lot of information. In particular, you asked if there's something that can be done to strengthen the embouchure. Of course, and that's called long tones. Okay, and that's something that we all work on. It's one of the fundamental, there's a whole page on working on your tone and dynamics.
Why long tones?
Why long tones, right. And so the information is right there. And so one of the reasons that we have to work on the tone and dynamics is that the tone is the identification of who we are. It's literally our voice on the instrument, okay? It's something when you think about someone like Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker, Cannonball Adderley, Ornette Coleman, Sonny Rollins, Dexter Gordon, John Coltrane, the list goes on and on. You get the point of what I'm saying. Is we identify them not so much by what they play, but by the tone of the instrument, by the sound that they produce. You can have an imitation, but within a few notes, you're going to know that that's not this person or that person, okay, by the tone. And the thing to realize is that we all have our own tone. Ravi Coltrane doesn't sound like his dad. You can't get much closer than that, but still he doesn't sound like his dad. Felix Pastorius doesn't sound like Jaco, and he plays the bass. Certainly influences, but it has to do with how we are shaped. Has to do with the thickness of the tongue, the shape of the teeth, the thickness of the jaw, the shape of the oral cavity, how big our head is, how much or how little hair we have. All these factors combine to give you your particular sound. And I could practice for the rest of my life to try to sound like Joe Henderson or Wayne Shorter, and it's not going to happen. Why? Because I'm not physically like them, nor have I lived their life experiences. Okay? So by working on long tones, and I have a very specific way I ask my students to work on it. You develop these muscles, the embouchure muscles, okay? If you can see, there are muscles here that I'm tightening, okay? And they're pretty firm, okay? The way I recommend doing them is with a tuner, going from soft up to loud, back down to soft again. And I'll give you a quick example.
Or play the trumpet.
Or play the trumpet. Which is a much easier instrument than the saxophone. What's that? C sharp. Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna take a long tone. I'm gonna start soft. I'm gonna get loud and then back down soft again. Okay, so a long tone is literally exactly what it says it is. It's a long tone. I'm going to write a couple of these things up on the board here real quick.
You got a shot here?
I got a shabby. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay, so tone and dynamics. Okay, so I'm doing long tones, starting from the piano to forte, back down to the piano again. All right. So we're working on not only the tone, and again, this is embouchure building because you want to use a tuner. Okay, you want to use a tuner. So you're working the embouchure muscles. Okay? You're also working the dynamics at a lot of different ranges. So you're working on staying in tune at all these different ranges because music is very dynamic. A lot of times when I talk about dynamics, I substitute the word emotion. Because I think that dynamics is just another word for emotion. Okay? So when there's a rise and fall, there's an emotional impact of that. So we need to be able to work on that. We need to be able to play in tune at all dynamic levels. So again, doing long tones is a really important part of that. And so what I recommend is that for 1 week, you know, for all you musicians out there who haven't done long tones and are unsure of the importance of them or how well they'll work, for 1 week, for 5 minutes a day, okay, which is what, 35 minutes, okay, total for a week, 7 times 35. For 1 week, do long tones in this way with a tuner. Start on middle C and go up or down chromatically, okay? C, C sharp, D, etc., or C, B, B flat, etc. At the end of that week, if you don't notice a difference in your own sound, don't ever do long tones again. All right? I will guarantee you a better sound. I will guarantee it, okay? If you do the long tones this way. There's a method to this, and it works. And the outcome of this is that it will be easier for you to play the instrument. It'll sound better, okay? You'll be playing more in tune. You'll have more control. People around you will be going, man, what have you been doing? You know, oh, I've just been doing some long tones. Oh, you sounded really good. Your band directors will notice. And for you, it'll be a lot more fun to make music. You'll be in better control of the instrument. You'll have a better sound. And you'll be stronger here with the embouchure. So these are things that I recommend. Anybody that wants to start playing again also, I'm like, well, in addition to all the other things you're doing, do 3 or 4 minutes of long tones every day, just to start, you know, and then build it up to 5 or 10 as part of your practice routine. And it's a great way to warm up. It warms up all the stuff here. It warms up the neck. It warms up your breathing also. Warms up the support of the tone. There's a lot of things that that long tones provide that are essential to producing a good, solid tone, consistent. Okay, and the consistency part of it, I think, is maybe the most important part, because rather than sounding really good one day and then like a few days later it's just like terrible, you want that consistency all the way through. As much as possible, you want to try to sound good as often as possible. Okay, great question. Yeah, great question. What else? Yes, right here. In the green.
I play the saxophone. Some days when you put on your mouthpiece, could it be different in tune than other days? You have to put it on a different spot.
Yeah. Are there certain days where the placement of the mouthpiece will be different? For me, not so much anymore. A little bit, maybe here and there, depending on the strength of the reed.
Or the climate we're playing.
Or the climate we play in, right, yeah, because if it gets really cold, instruments go crazy. If it gets really hot, instruments go crazy because they're made of metal. And when it's cold, metal shrinks. And when it's very hot, metal expands. So it changes, even the subtle changes of length in this instrument change the intonation, change the tuning. So we have to sometimes do something here. If we're flat, we have to push in. If we're sharp, we have to bring the pitch down. So we bring the mouthpiece out to lengthen the tube. The longer the tube, the lower the pitch. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So for me, I leave my mouthpiece on the horn because I'm playing it every day, and I put it in a case and I put it inside the bell. And a lot of professional players do that. I don't recommend doing that right now. You're probably taking your instrument apart every day, right? You clean the mouthpiece, like cool water through it sometimes and put a swab, that kind of thing. Don't ever use hot water or boiling water on a plastic mouthpiece, right? Think about what would happen. Right? So if it would melt it, boiling water would melt and warp a plastic mouthpiece. And don't leave it on the dash or don't leave it out in the sun, kind of thing, especially, in the South here where we get very hot weather. So if you're going to, and this information is in the book also, on like just tips for saxophone players. And use cool water, when you're rinsing a mouthpiece. And if you take care of your equipment, it will take care of you. And I think that's an important part of things. Okay. And also hygienically, like keeping the germs away is really important. Like not letting other people play your instruments is probably a smart idea. And, or if you do, like wash it, and spray it down with alcohol. Go wash it for sure. Rinse it out. So yeah, good question. Good question. Did that answer your question? Okay, great. Yes.
What's your on stage, on the road setup for saxophone, and then your trumpet?
It's the same as I play all the time. I worked with Diodario on a new tenor mouthpiece, which is what I'm playing. I've been playing it for a few months now, and I've been playing a Freddie Gregory for many, many years, and I said, if you could beat this, then we have something, and I think they've done it. These mouthpieces, it's called the Select Jazz tenor mouthpiece, and it comes in a 6, 7, 8, and a 9, and I think they're absolutely phenomenal. They're computer made, so like drill a solid piece of rubber into this mouthpiece, and consistency wise, it's stellar, absolutely stellar. The workmanship on the inside of it also, you would never know that it was made by drills. It's very smooth, and so this is kind of the holy grail for me and for a lot of other players, to have a mouthpiece that is this high quality, that like if I drop it and break it, I can call them up and say, hey, send me another one, and it's going to be almost identical. It's crazy what they've done, honestly. And so I've been playing this for a few months now, I think since October or November, and I've just moved up to an 8. I'm trying to get 8 on this trip, just to try it. And the flexibility is great, so this is what I play on the road. Yeah.
What's your reed and leg set?
Oh, the ligature is an Ishimori, which is a Japanese company. And my reeds are all Diodario, the Select Jazz, the Jazz Select rather, 3 soft. Yeah. And all my horns are Yamahas. I have a number of tenors, baritone, actually 2 baritones, 3 altos, a couple sopranos, flute, an alto flute also. They're all Yamahas. And I've been with Yamaha for a little over 15 years now. And I love their stuff. It's very consistent. I have the lacquer taken off of my instruments. This horn is only a couple years old. And it looks like it's a lot older, but there's no lacquer on it. And it's been played a lot also. Why would I take the lacquer off? It's a great question. For me, It tends to allow the horn to breathe a little more, gives a little more character to the sound, makes it a little bit more malleable tonally and texturally with the sound. The Japanese technique for lacquer is a very strong lacquer. And like I had the lacquer taken off of my soprano, and it had to sit in an acid bath for 24 hours for it to come off, you know? And so it's really, my wife is from Japan, and so I've seen some of the lacquer work that they do over there, and it's absolutely incredible. They do a lot of it by hand. So their technique for it has evolved over the years. So they don't want the lacquer, like if you look at older horns, you might see that the lacquer is flaking off, you know, and it kind of looks a little spotty, you know. So the Japanese, I think when they decided to use that lacquer, they're like, well, if somebody buys a horn that looks this nice, we don't want the lacquer chipping off. So they came up with a method, which I don't know what it is, of course, but that the lacquer really stays on the horn forever. And I don't think that I've ever seen a Yamaha that the lacquer has chipped off of it, you know, which is pretty astonishing, quite honestly. And, so, yeah, you have a question? What you got?
What about self-control?
What about what?
Self-control.
What about what?
Today was an interesting day for him in school, and he wants to learn how to play the saxophone. I said the first thing, self-control.
Oh, self-control, yeah. Well, you know, that's actually a very interesting question, like when you say about self-control. A lot of what we do is about self-discipline. You know, we have to practice. Even if we don't want to practice, it's something we have to do. It's like picking up your room or taking a bath. You know, there's certain things that you have to do sometimes. You know, whether you want to or not. Like once every couple of weeks, I'll take a bath, whether I want to or not. But you know, we have to work on scales. These are disciplines that we have to do. We have to work on fundamentals. You know, and it has a lot to do with that, with self-control. And so if we want to play the saxophone, if we want to play the trumpet, if we want to play the violin, whatever it is, we have to put in time. You know, someone's putting in money, so we have to put in time. And so there's an exchange that goes on. Okay, there's an exchange that goes on.
Wait, I think we need to say that one for children again.
Yes, please.
Which part? Someone's putting in money, so someone has to put in time. Yeah, and I think we know who's putting in the money, and I think that we know who's supposed to put in the time. Okay. All right. So let's get you first, and we'll come back to these guys. Yes.
So I play a bassoon, and it's hard for me to play soft and loud. I usually just get one.
One dynamic level.
One volume.
One volume.
And
Okay.
I don't know how. And sometimes on music it wants me to make an accent, and I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, bassoon has two reeds. Okay. They're called double reed instruments. Oboe and English horn, or a couple others. Are you familiar with a bassoon player named Paul Hansen?
No.
You should write his name down. He might be the greatest bassoon player on the planet. He's also a fantastic saxophone player. Paul Hansen, Hanson. You just write Paul Hansen bassoon, you'll find him. And like he uses crazy guitar pedals. He's a genius. I've never heard anybody like this guy in my life. But he has a book, a bassoon pedagogical book that you might look at. I think that you can also probably find him on Facebook. I think he's got a website, you can email him. He would be a great resource for you to talk to about those things. I don't know a lot about double reed instruments, but I do know that a lot of it has to do with the breath support also, and controlling the breath support, and making sure that when you're producing a tone, the amount of air that you're putting through the instrument itself has to do with the volume that you're producing. Okay? Go ahead.
I think it might also have to do with the embouchure, because sometimes when I'm just playing my reed, when I squeeze it, it makes a much more higher pitched sound.
Yeah, that's because you're closing the aperture down. You know, and it has to do with the physics, I think, of how close it gets to the highness of the pitch itself. Okay, and you don't. The thing is, on double reed instruments, you don't want to squeeze here. You know, you want the embouchure to close around it, but those reeds have to vibrate, okay? And if you squeeze them, if I squeeze the reed here, I'm gonna play without putting down any keys for my man here, then you'll hear that it kind of squeezes off the tone. Okay, so I have to stay fairly relaxed on the lower lip especially. The only part of the face that moves is the jaw, right? It's the only part that hinges. So I can put a lot of pressure or very little pressure on the reed, okay? Because we want that to have the flexibility. So it's the same with double reeds. You don't want to put pressure on the reed from the bottom or the top because you need both of those reeds to be vibrating, okay? So the thing that I have to be careful about is that I'm not pushing from the top. That's why the embouchure is so important. So that these muscles are supporting the mouthpiece, okay? And if somebody's embouchure is not strong, then chances are pretty good that they're going to start pushing from the bottom. It's called biting, okay? So when you chew food, you don't chew like this, right? You chew the jaw moves rather than the whole head, right? Because that would look really silly. So it's the same here. You know, you don't want to be pushing too much from the bottom, and so you should be careful with that on the singing as well. But practice putting in different volumes of air. You may have to support a little more when you're putting in a less amount of air, okay, to keep the pitch up on it. But get in touch with Paul. He'll be able to help.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, right here. I've been playing the saxophone since I was 11, and I'm 14 now, so that's... No, I've been playing for probably about 40 years. Yeah. You do the math.
I started when I was 8, and now I'm 38, so 30 years. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Oh, me too. Yeah, right here. Then. How many octaves can I play? 1, 2, 3, about 4.5 for me.
How can you play that high?
Practice. Well, there's different fingerings. Okay, so the actual range of the saxophone is about 2.5 octaves. Okay, from low B flat, we got an octave, another octave, and then a fifth. Okay. Did I say 4.5? I guess I meant 3.5 octaves I can play. And so the notes that are above the written stave, like you have the high F above the staff, the notes above that are what are called altissimo notes. A-L-T-I-S-S-I-M-O. And it's an Italian word. And literally it means in the highest. Okay? So those are notes that are off the instrument, that are going way into the upper end of the instrument. Okay? And so there are different fingerings that you use for those, which are kind of a long way down the road. You know, for most players, you're going to stay within the staff. You know, from that high F down to the low B flat. As you get more proficient, as you advance as a player, then you start getting into what I call alternate techniques. Alternate techniques for the saxophone is altissimo, different articulation techniques, overtones, this kind of thing. But for me, those are important because I'm trying to stretch the voice of the instrument also. Okay, and so I hear up in that range, and I like the way it sounds. And there's an emotional impact that when you get up into the higher range, that you can create energy, you know, not only through the low sounds, but through the high sounds as well. And so I try to extend the range of the instrument. And I practice that sometimes also, you know, I'll work melodies up in that upper range of the instrument and challenge myself on things. And I'll play a quick melody that I did that on. this it's just using the chords of a blues. But I was at a clinic one time in Nashville, and I was a little early, and I was in a room, kind of a large auditorium, and it sounded really good in there. And so I was practicing, and I'd been working on some intervallic structures, and just kind of wide leaps on the instrument. And so, so I came up with this. So it's just over the chords of a blues. But it's challenging me to play up in that altissimo range, in the highest range, and to create little melodies here and there. And so that to me is fun to do. Like, it's fun to work up in that range and to try to figure things out. It's a little awkward sometimes, because we're not used to playing up there. And there's a little bit of a different thing that goes on in the mouth and in the throat. I have to manipulate things slightly. So it's just practice, And so for me, about 3.5 octaves that I have, and I'm going to let him address this also on his side of things, because he has sort of an unusual range, we might say.
I have a 5.5 octave range. I will not demonstrate because it hurts. Which is why I always give him crap about the saxophone being so easy. It just hurts to do the stuff that I have to do sometimes. But it's practice. I didn't just one day wake up and say, "Oh, I can play that note." I really had to work on it, and the key to that was focusing on the quality of sound. If everything on the bottom of the horn sounds uniform, if everything in the middle of the horn sounds uniform, if everything in the actual written range of the trumpet sounds uniform in terms of quality of sound, then I started to expand that, and I wanted to make sure that those notes sounded just the same in quality as, the stuff, in the lower, middle, and the upper written range of the instrument. There are guys, it's not something, the thing about it is this is not something that's new in terms of trumpet players having extreme registers. Arturo Sandoval, Cat Anderson, Bud Brisbois, John Faddis, Wayne Bergeron. There's a ton of cats that have extraordinary range on the trumpet, man. It's the cat that did it mostly. The thing that impressed me the most was, and I know I say it all the time, is just Jerry Hay, because he did it in a totally different setting that wasn't jazz oriented. It wasn't in a big band. It was in a section with Earth, Wind and Fire, or it was, with Michael Jackson or Toto or something like that. So that was the thing that really kind of caught me, because I guess maybe some people, most of the young people in here, can relate to the fact that some of us, we just kind of start where we start. We did a clinic yesterday, and we went through this whole historical thing about Coleman Hawkins and Ben Webster and all these guys, and hardly anybody knew who they were. And we did all that historical stuff, and then I got to the last thing I played, and almost everybody knew, and it was Snarky Puppy. And I was like, "Oh, Snarky Puppy." And I said, "Okay, good. Those guys know all this. So I know that we start where we start, and for me it was kind of like the same thing. The thing that got me interested, just like how Snarky Puppy got those students interested, was me hearing Jerry Hay, Gary Grant, and Chuck Findlay playing the crap out of the trumpet on pop records. That's what made me do what I wanted to do. You know, so with those guys, playing with Michael Jackson and Earth, Wind and Fire, that's like some of my favorite music. But then, after I got to know those guys, or I read their interviews and I went on, you know, I Googled and, you know, read who were their influences, that's when I got into, you know, Bud Brisbois and Cat Anderson, and, you know, I checked out who those guys checked out. So I went back and checked out the history. So, you know, me having the range that I do, it's not a new thing. There's so many people that came before me that did this and did it by far better. You know, I'm just a catalyst, and I'm just a person that is here trying to share knowledge with you guys, and hoping that whoever inspires you, you go back and check out who inspired them. And that's how you move everything forward. So, you know, I'm happy that people are just kind of like, yeah, we love your freakish trumpet range, but I'm just like, yeah, but check these guys out. Check out Cat Anderson. Check out John Fadden. Check out all these other guys. You know, so that was a long-winded answer to your question.
You know, man, if that many people can play that well, it must be a really easy instrument to play. Right?
Not really.
Yes.
How does hair contribute to your tone?
How does? Well, in my case, it doesn't at all. Yeah, well, it all makes a difference. You know, like one of the things that I've noticed over the years, like if it's cold outside and I wear a hat and I'm listening to music, when I take the hat off, the music sounds different to me. Okay, and part of it is that when we play, okay, there's called conductivity that's going on, so that the vibration that's coming through the instrument is also coming through the bones in my head, right? That makes sense to you, right? Okay. Like if you ever heard yourself on a recording, your voice sounds different to you than it does in your head, right? It's the same idea, okay? So if I had a bunch of hair, you know, it would change things slightly, but it would still change things. It's a similar thing now that I've shaved my head. Things sound different to me. I mean, it's hard to explain, but again, like when I put a hat on and I take it off and I'm listening to music, it sounds different. You know, I don't know why, but it does.
Hashtag he plays better when he shaves.
Yeah. Yes.
So you guys have been playing for a long time, so I'm sure you also struggle with this. But for some of the newer students, like, what are some things that you use to motivate you to practice? You said you have to do it.
What are some of the things that motivate us to practice? Well, you want to take this first?
Paying the bills. So you younger students won't understand what that is quite yet, but you will. And it's a factor of going back to when I said, you need to say that again. Somebody's putting in the money, so you got to put in the time. And I just had a mother that was just like, my mother did not play. She was like, okay, great, so you're going off to college, we're gonna get you started, you get through college, don't even think about leaving college early, talking about you got a gig, you need to get a degree, and don't bring your behind back home. So I I was like, it was sink or swim. It wasn't, okay, Mom, I'm done with college now. I'm gonna move back in for a few years while I get myself together. Like, it was none of that. So, fear was, I was like, well, I guess I need to practice. And there were a lot of other things in terms of, you know, situations or, you know, the road that I traveled, which was pretty much motivated by paying the bills. Like, once I got out of college, I wanted to be a straight ahead jazz musician with Nicholas Payton at the time. You know, he was like favorite trumpet player, and I was just like, I want to do what he does. And then I got to New York, and then you run into cats like, you know, when Marcellus is playing there, you got guys like Jeremy Pell, Amro, Akinmusuri, and Sean Jones, and like, there was so many trumpet players in New York in terms of competition that I said, you know what, I'm gonna go play with the funk band. Because at that time, a lot of the guys in New York, it was more like a jazz purist thing. It was like, you know, late 90s, nobody wanted to play commercial music. So I just kind of cornered that market. I literally was just like, well, I'll take the funk gigs, and I'll take the commercial gigs, and, you know, so that's kind of what I did. I still loved jazz, but I think for me, it got to a point where, you know, I started playing funk and commercial music on a jazz setup. So what I was playing at the time wasn't, you know, I was trying to run a marathon in wingtips. And that's just not the right way to do things. So basically, I had to put a lot of time in. I had to go find a teacher, and at the time, everybody said, you know, I was friends with some of the guys in Conan O'Brien band and some of the guys on Letterman, and, you know, and they were just like, hey, you know, go see Laurie Frank. And we used to call her the trumpet doctor. She played lead trumpet for, you know, like one of the first female lead trumpet players. An amazing teacher, and she studied with Carmine Caruso. So I literally had to start over in terms of playing the trumpet, getting my chops, you know, getting the right equipment for the job that I was doing mostly, because while I wanted to be in a jazz quintet and do all that stuff, I just had my mom in the back of my head say, don't bring your behind back home. Don't come back home. So I needed, like, I had to do what I had to do. So fear and, you know, being, you know, proficient at what I did was enough motivation for me. If I kept doing that, and I still do it to this day, you know, it's the fear. Yeah, we play in front of 15, 20, sometimes 40,000 people a night sometimes. But at the end of the day, man, we go home to our separate lives, and I have to go sit in the trumpet section in Arturo Sandoval's big band and play with one of the greatest trumpet players in the world. I can't slack. And Wayne Bergeron is playing lead, and Gary Grant is playing third trumpet, and Dan Fornero is sitting right next to me. These are all guys that I grew up listening to. So I can't go in there being disrespectful and not being on top of my stuff. So that was enough motivation for me in terms of how I motivate myself to practice and become more proficient at what I do. You know, it's just that important to me. So I'll let Jeff put his 2 cents in, and what motivates him might be completely different. I don't know. We'll find out right now. Stay tuned.
I think a lot of the same things as Rashawn. I think for me also that the music demands, the music that I want to make and the players that I want to play with, that music and those musicians in those situations demand that I attain a certain level of musicianship. And I went to school in North Texas, got my ed degree, and I was around a lot of really amazing young players. And I realized kind of early on that that my favorite players and our favorite players as musicians were very unique. And I realized that the thing that I loved so much about them was their uniqueness. And that many of my favorite players were also my favorite composers. And so one of my paths along the way has been as a composer. And so I've written a lot of material, I put out a lot of solo records. I write a lot. And so going along with that, my playing has developed a voice, a certain voice, because I've played original music throughout the years. I spent 14 years with Bela Fleck in the Flecktones, and my own group, the Mutet, I've had for a number of years. And I'm really interested in playing original music. One of the reasons why I love playing with Dave Matthews also is that it's original music, and it's coming from the source. It's not a cover band. And so those are the things that I'm interested in. And for me, again, those situations demand that I have my stuff together. And I don't want to be the guy that gets to the gig and doesn't have it together, doesn't know my music, that I'm playing out of tune, or that I'm not articulating correctly. I don't want to be the weak link, you know? And so that's, you know, what I kind of tongue-in-cheek said, fear, it actually is a fear of that. You know, I don't want to let people down. I don't want to let down the people that have taught me all these years, the people that have put their faith and their hard work and their money into to just kind of slack off, you know. I care too much about it. And that inspires me also, you know. It inspires me to practice and to work on things. I know if I've had a bad gig, but I try to attain a level of consistency that you may not know that I had a bad gig. Okay? So the person that really matters, like Ornette Coleman said, this is a very important quote to me. Ornette Coleman said all listeners are equal in their opinions. Okay? So if someone comes up to me after the gig and says, man, you sounded terrible tonight, okay? And then the next person comes up and says, man, you sounded great tonight. What a great time. I had an amazing time. Whose opinion matters? Neither one in the long run. It's my opinion and how I know I performed. If I felt like I had a good night and I felt like I'm on top of my game, then I'm like, okay, well, they didn't like it. That's okay. Or they did like it, and that's okay too. Okay? But I'm the guy that knows. I know my own weaknesses better than anybody. And I think that it's a continual and constant evaluation and reevaluation of our strengths and weaknesses that get us to those next points. You know? And so those are the things that we continue to work on, and they come down to the fundamentals of music. You know, what I call the big five. That's what, it all comes down to that. All comes down to that.
What's the big five?
I'm gonna put it over here. We've talked about it. And let me put it over here actually, but it is in the book. So you notice I put a 2 by the tone and dynamics. That, in my opinion, is the second most important fundamental. Again, because it's your identity. This is your voice. Your voice. Okay. So we have articulation. And rhythm and time, I don't separate these. Is that rhythm? Is that rhythm? Yeah. Rhythm and time and harmony. Okay? And we don't have the number 1 up here yet. So this is what I call the big 5. Even though the number 1 isn't up here. Okay? And these are fundamental elements of music. Now, these are also fundamental elements of a spoken language. Tone and dynamics. Definitely have tone and dynamics to our voice. The emotional part is the dynamics. Articulation. Articulation is a lot about clarity. Okay? Not only just clarity of how we present something, speaking or playing wise, but it's clarity of an idea, of a thought, of a concept. Rhythm and time. Our voices definitely have rhythm and time to them. Okay? Some people are much more rhythmic than other people. You can take speeches and patterns of speech. John Coltrane's tune Alabama was a song that was based off of a Martin Luther King speech. So rhythm and time is all in our voice. And most of the time, we're speaking in odd meter. Okay? And it's not metronomic in the sense of like, it's 120 beats a minute and we're in 4/4 time. Okay, it's kind of all over the place. And so there's something within improvisation also that I think imitates the way that we speak. And for some people it's very natural. And for other people, I think they have to get to it eventually. Harmony to me is about the relationship between sounds. Okay? Intervals and chords and how things are stacked upon each other. And it's the same with the spoken language. We have 26 letters in the alphabet, and we start putting together combinations of sounds. Okay, the relationship between those sounds makes up our words. The relationship between the 12 notes that we use in the Western scale makes up our chords. Okay, makes up our melodies. So those are four of the big five fundamentals. What do you think is the most important fundamental? What do you think is the most important fundamental? Somebody said it. Articulation's on there. Listening, yes. Yes, can you write that up on the board for me? Listening is the most important fundamental you can work on. And here's a great way to learn how to become a better listener. The word listen and the word silent contain exactly the same letters. And there's a hint. Okay? In order to become a better listener, sometimes you have to be silent. Okay? I'm going to say it again because it's important. In order to become a better listener, sometimes you have to remain silent. Okay? There's great power in silence, and there's great learning in silence. And so I know we talked about that at the very beginning of the clinic as well. So yeah, listening is the most important fundamental. Yes, sir.
So is it like it sound like if somebody mess up or something, like you can tell the person's missing?
Yeah, you can listen and you can tell what's going on. So sometimes you might hear a mistake, but it's interesting, like if you hear a mistake, quote unquote, see how they get out of it. Like the great players, they'll take a mistake and you won't even know it's a mistake because they'll mask it in a way that they just kind of go right to the next place, you know? And that takes listening also. You know, it takes listening on your part and the other people's parts to kind of get around that and to go together in the next place. But yeah, you can hear all sorts of stuff if you really listen well. How do you anticipate something that's coming up? Oh, that's a great question. How do you anticipate something that's coming up? Well, on certain kinds of music, if you've listened to it enough, it may be something that's familiar. It might be a familiar form. And so you might know that, okay, well, this is coming. But sometimes you may not know. And you may have to be such a good listener that you have to pivot, like in a moment, and do something different, you know? And it's like if you're playing basketball, you know, you may know the game of basketball, but something may occur, and you have to make a split-second decision that suddenly you go a different way with it. So you're kind of improvising there also. And the word improvisation at its root means unexpected or surprise. So the idea of improvisation, we can improvise in any situation. So sometimes you can't anticipate what's coming next. And you have to improvise. So you have to be able to think on your feet and listen and react to things that are going on. Yeah, good. Yes?
In both of your opinions, what is the hardest piece in the world to learn?
world peace. Oh, music piece. Well, I don't know. Well, I will say this. There's a friend of mine. I'm going to see if I can find this real quick for y'all. There's a friend of mine who goes, is there internet here? What's the guest wireless password?
I think it's Steinway 1 with a capital S.
Done.
That go through, Jeff?
Let's see here.
I stopped learning pieces in high school.
Try it without the one.
Let me try with the word. Steinway is S-T-E-I-N, right?
It's just Steinway, I'm sorry. No capital S, no 1.
Oh, okay.
S-T-E-I-N way.
That should do it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the piece that I want to play for you is a friend of mine. He goes by the moniker Pedro Saxo.
Can't learn this stuff.
Pedro Saxo, and he's been working on you guys know who Paganini was? Paganini is a very famous violinist, a virtuoso, like the virtuoso of virtuosos. This might be the hardest piece in the world to learn, especially on saxophone. Okay? And so Pedro came from Spain. He lives in Nashville now. He's playing the saxophone in a way that nobody's ever played it before, in my opinion. And people always say, oh, well, yeah, but can you play classical saxophone? Now, he was trained in a conservatory, but he plays in you go to pedrosaxo.com and check it out. It's absolutely astonishing what he's doing. So what he did this year, he's teaching in Murfreesboro, Tennessee now, at MTSU. And so he recorded a Paganini Caprice on alto saxophone. It's about 2.5 minutes long. Circular breathing through the whole thing, okay? And I'll let you make up your minds about how difficult this may be. Classically trained.
not impressed. If you could play it on the trumpet, then we're talking.
Yes, right here. Can I play it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. No. I don't know how we.
Begin to approach that.
Yeah, man, I can't even imagine, quite honestly. Yes.
So, a little bit earlier, I'm a trumpet player. So a little bit earlier, you were talking about building a big quality sound. What are some of the things you do?
Oh boy, here we go. Yeah.
The question was how to create a big quality sound on the trumpet as a trumpet player.
That's what happens when we working, man. Working, man. So this is the first thing I do when I pick up the horn. You don't have your horn, do you? No, of course not. Luckily, we're in a music store. So basically, when I ask people to pull out their tuning slides and just play the lead pipe, they look at me like I'm a crazy person. So, and the first thing I usually get when I ask somebody to play their tuning slide or their lead pipe is this. And I say, okay. So what I then tell them to do is match my sound, but I'm going to ask Jeff to, he knows the drill. So this is what this should sound like.
It's like angels from heaven.
So basically, the quality that you're going for on the lead pipe with the trumpet, you want it to sound like the neck of a saxophone, which would sound like this. Different pitch, the pitches are different, but I'm just talking about the quality of sound, the vibration, the resonance. You know, you want it to sound big and full and like a reedy buzz. So that when you put your tuning slide back in, right, it sounds like this. And this is the way you should approach playing the trumpet. All the time, like you just did playing the lead pipe. Exactly. And then when I put this back in, I'm playing the same thing. So it's just this big round, and that's what I mean by quality of sound. Because if I'm doing this, and I put that through the horn, this is what it's going to sound like. You don't want that. You want uniform all the way through. Bottom of the horn, middle of the horn, top of the horn. Everything uniform. So that's one thing you do, and that's the very first thing I do when I pick up the horn. Get this lead pipe to vibrate, and once I get that really saxy buzz through the lead pipe, I know that the sound coming through the horn is going to be clear, it's going to be round, it's going to be nice, and just, like a big lead pipe hitting you in the chest. So when I played the first note, she did this.
That seems really easy.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it okay to play on the red?
Is it okay to play on the red? You have your horn? Oh, break it out, brother.
Oh, he's doing that. You have another question? Yeah, I'll tell you right now. Speak up.
What's skewed? Like,
Oh, so if that's uniform, what's not uniform?
The way I usually describe it is trumpet players sounding like 2 or 3 different people playing the same horn. So if a guy sounds like this, that sounds like 3 different people because it's not uniform from top to bottom. Because he doesn't have his low stuff together, which means his sound is not in focus. His middle register, which is the sweet spot of the horn, it's just like, okay, yeah, great, that's cool, we can get that. And then when he gets to the high register, there's manipulations and pinching and redirecting of air and all that stuff going on, so that you're not getting a full center sound. Instead of getting this, you're getting it's swirly and it's not focused. But come up here for a second. I want to see what you.
Did that answer your question, by the way?
So that's,
Right.
yeah. So
Good question.
play me a G in the middle of the staff. Okay, cool. Now let's do the same thing that everybody heard that. Cool. Pull out your tuning slide. Play the lead pipe for me. Okay, cool. Now make it sound like mine. Good. One more time. Okay, great. Put your tuning slide back in. Same way you just played the lead pipe. Exact same way. Play me that same G. It's always really tough to tell a student, well, you know, I really try not to get into changing embouchures unless it's really hindering you, because there are people that, like, man, I play next to people that play down the center. John Faddis plays over here, you know, and there's no way in the world I'm ever going to tell John Faddis, yo, bro, you need to get your embouchure back to the center. You know, I mean, John Faddis, true story, as well as Wayne Bergeron, they both had their teeth fixed and couldn't play. So they went back to the dentist and it was like, put my chip tooth back. Because we're all different. What works for me isn't going to work for John Faddis, isn't going to work for John Lewis, isn't going to work for Malcolm McNabb or Gary Grant. And we're all different. You know, Arturo, different. You know, everybody gets to the end result in very different ways. But what I just showed you is something that's instantaneous, that you got immediate results from. And if you can play the horn and have that sound, I'm not going to tell you to change anything unless you run into a serious brick wall and you come to me and say, well, I can't do lip slurs or something, or my articulation is messed up. Like, I'm not going to change what you're doing. So if there's something in particular that you feel like you're not getting correctly, then we could talk about that. But I would never, just from that alone, that simple exercise, your sound already improved. And all you have to do to keep that sound is what, Skyler? No, what do you have to do? I mean, you pull out tunes like, but what do you have to do all the time? You have to be consistent. You have to do it every day. I mean, if I don't play the horn at all, like I have a few lead pipes laying around that I just pick up and I make sure that that resonance is there. So that the next time I pick up the horn, I know what it's supposed to sound like every day, you know? So if you're in school and you're, you're not sure what it's supposed to sound like, grab one of your friends that's playing a saxophone and like, hey man, can you just play your neck for me? And you try to match that, you're going for that resonance. And if you do that 5 minutes a day before you do anything to make sure that all your components are in order for you to play the instrument, you'll be a better player in no time. Your sound will be amazing. So playing on the red, I'm not going to tell you to change anything if you just got that result.
And one last question, and then we got to finish up here.
And y'all both say y'all went to college, and how many y'all would y'all say that at college? I mean, we see musicians that get lucky and make it without college degrees. I mean, would you say college helps y'all?
For me, I'm a firm believer in college. Kind of going out into the world at 17 or 18 for most people is a real challenge. I think that one of the most important things that gets developed at college are relationships. And these are people that you kind of go through the trenches with, and you come out the other side 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, however long you spend in college. And some of my dearest friends are still the people that I went to school with. And those are different kinds of friendships than you develop later on, because you're kind of going through the same experience together. And so I think it's important to recognize, and to realize how important these relationships are, not only in the moment, of course, because they help to shape and define who you are, but down the road also, and how important it is to have those people in your life. And so I'm a big believer in that.
To add to that, again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Like you said, there are lots of successful musicians that never went to college, but I mean, it's, you can argue on both sides. It's just like, there are lots of garage bands that play to stadiums, and there are lots of educated musicians that are unemployed. So, but again,
Kind of a coin toss.
yeah. But the thing is, relationships. So the more relationships you can foster, I think the better. I mean, our bass player, Dave Matthews, never went to college. He was in the band when he was 16. They had to sneak him into clubs. He's never stepped foot a day in college until I think he took some Berkeley online classes one summer or something. But he had relationships. He was gigging music. He was gigging at like 14, 15. And it was like his dad knew people around town, and when Dave and Carter and Leroy put a band together, his dad, knew Dave and Carter and Leroy, and they're just like, yeah, man, we're putting this thing together. And he's like, you guys should get my son. He plays bass, and then ended up being one of the biggest bands in the world. So it's all relationships, whether it's in college, whether it's just around town. If you're here in Memphis, get to know the people. For all you musicians, you're in Memphis. Get to know the cats that are playing around town. You never know. It's just like one of Jeff's students, a keyboard player, like he's just coming out of college and he's getting ready to go on the road with some pretty name artists. It's just like, and that's right out of college. So it's all relationships, no matter if it's college, no matter if it's around your town, in your neighborhood, if you know people that you went to a summer band camp with, or wherever you want to get. It's like fostering relationships. I sat in the same auditorium with, John Mayer our freshman year at Berkeley. We all came in together, and Keith Harris, who became the producer and drummer for the Black Eyed Peas, and then, Juan Naharan, who became Usher's musical director for 15 years. And that's how I got that connection. So it's all about fostering relationships, no matter whether it's college, whether it's high school. You could be sitting next to the next Steve Jobs right now. You don't know. You have no idea.
She's not sitting next to me.
You never know. You could be sitting next to somebody that's about to change the world as we know it in this room. You never know. And that's why, if you guys leave here with anything today, on top of all this music stuff, being a good person and being, treating each other well, and leaving all that attitude and all that vibe outside, and taking care of each other. You never know where that stuff's going to take you. My mom always said, never underestimate the power of a thank you card. People remember that stuff, those little things. So I'll give it back to Jeff, and I guess we're almost about ready to wrap.
Yeah, those great words there for sure. Hey, thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks to Amro Music. I've been here a number of times, and Rashawn and I were here again, or previously last year as well. I love the people that work here. They're really great, and I know that they really care about the community, and they care a lot about music education, and that's why I keep coming back, because we have similar things that we feel very, very strongly about. And so again, it's these relationships that occur, that you develop over time, and you get to see people, even if it's once or twice a year, you come back and, you strengthen that relationship, and you continue it. So let's give it up for Amro Music and all that. So if you'd like to try some of the tenor mouthpieces that Jeff is talking about that just came in, we got them in knowing that Jeff was going to be here today, so you're welcome to check some of those out. So I think the guys are going to stick around just for a few minutes. They've got some merchandise back here in the back, so if you want to check out some of their CDs, you want to grab a quick picture here, and then thank you all for coming out, and have a great evening.